You would think by now cities would have learned from their mistakes, but so many urban planners keep repeating the same bad ideas that ruin everyday life. They widen roads and traffic gets worse. They cut sidewalks and walking becomes dangerous. They pour money into parking lots while public transit falls apart. These aren't old problems from the past, they're mistakes happening right now in the cities we live in today. Starting with one of the dumbest urban planning mistakes cities still make today is running giant highways straight through the middle of downtown. It sounds efficient when cars can zip in and out, businesses get more access, and traffic moves. But in real life, it kills the heart of the city. Highways don't just carry cars, they split neighborhoods in half. They bulldoze homes, crush small businesses, and leave behind walls of noise, fumes, and concrete. Instead of connecting people, they tear communities apart. Walkability drops to zero, streets get louder and more dangerous, the air gets dirtier, property values crash near the concrete. And here's the kicker, traffic doesn't even get better. In fact, adding more lanes usually makes it worse. This results in induced demands where the more space you give to cars, the more cars show up to fill it. Cities that doubled down on downtown highways decades ago are still paying the price. Look at places like Houston, Dallas, or Atlanta. Miles of elevated freeways, endless congestion, and entire neighborhoods erased. Meanwhile, the cities that removed downtown highways like San Francisco and Seoul didn't collapse, they actually thrived. Streets became safer, property values went up, businesses came back, and people could actually walk and bike again. So why are we still doing this in 2025? Because highway projects are easy to sell. They look like progress. They promise faster commutes. And politicians love a big ribbon cutting. But the truth is, plowing freeways through the center of a city is one of the fastest ways to make it less livable. But highways aren't the only bad idea cities can't seem to quit. The next one is just as dumb, and it's associated with zoning laws that ban mixed-use buildings. For some reason, many cities still force homes, shops, offices, and restaurants to stay separated by law. That means you can't have an apartment above a grocery store, a cafe next to housing, or a corner store near your block. On paper, planners thought this separation would make cities organized. In real life, it makes everything worse. It creates cities where you have to drive for every single thing. Groceries, coffee, a gym, even a quick bite to eat. Walking becomes impossible. Neighborhoods feel empty and lifeless because nothing happens there except sleep. Streets are dead during the day and unsafe at night. And just like with highways, this doesn't even solve traffic, it creates more of it. When people can't live near where they work or shop, the car becomes the only option. Look at old neighborhoods built before these zoning laws. They're the most popular and expensive parts of cities today. Why? Because they're walkable. You can live upstairs, work down the street, grab food around the corner. People actually want that lifestyle. Meanwhile, newer areas built under strict zoning feel soulless. Endless subdivisions and strip malls where the only way to get anywhere is to sit in traffic. What's worse is that these zoning laws lock cities in place. Even if residents want walkable mixed-use neighborhoods, the rules often make it literally illegal to build them. And if zoning bans weren't enough, cities doubled down with another mistake with parking minimums. These are laws that force every new building to include a set number of parking spaces, no matter what. At first, it sounds reasonable. People need parking, right? But the truth is, these rules wreck cities. By law, developers have to waste huge chunks of land and money on parking spots and garages instead of housing, parks, or actual businesses. That's why you see empty asphalt seas around malls, offices, and even small stores. The city didn't choose that design. It was required. Parking minimums also make everything more expensive. Adding underground garages or giant lots can raise building costs by millions. And guess who pays for that? Not the developer. The cost gets pushed onto renters, shoppers, and then the community. Housing costs climb, small businesses struggle, and the city becomes less walkable because huge parking lots mean longer distances between places. Even with all those mandatory places, people still complain about not enough parking because when you build for cars, you get more cars. Just like highways, the demand never ends. You can't pave your way out of it. Some cities that ditched parking minimums, like Minneapolis, Buffalo, and Auckland, didn't collapse. They actually got cheaper housing, denser neighborhoods, and more walkable streets. Meanwhile, cities that still enforce them are drowning in empty asphalt and unaffordable rents. And all those parking minimums lead to the biggest mistake of all, building cities that rely almost completely on cars. When every rule, road, and law is designed around driving, the car becomes the only real option. Need groceries? Drive. Going to school? Drive. Heading 2 blocks down the street? Still drive. Cities make it so inconvenient or even unsafe to walk, bike, or take a bus that people don't really have a choice. And once that car-first system locks in, it becomes nearly impossible to escape. The cost of this over-reliance is huge. Families end up needing 2 or 3 cars just to function. That means car payments, gas, insurance, maintenance, all eating into monthly budgets. People aren't choosing cars out of love. They're stuck with them because cities give them no alternative. The quality of life suffers too. Streets become traffic sewers. Kids can't safely walk to school. Air pollution climbs. Commutes stretch longer and longer. And even though cities keep adding more roads and lanes, the traffic never truly goes away. Cars create traffic, and traffic demands more cars. It's a loop that never ends. Meanwhile, cities that invest in transit, biking, and walkability are proving that it doesn't have to be this way. Think of Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Tokyo. People still own cars, but they don't need them for every single trip. That freedom is what makes those cities feel alive. And the obsession with cars creates another huge mistake: endless suburban sprawl. Cities keep spreading outward with cookie-cutter subdivisions, giant parking lots, and strip malls stretched miles apart. On the surface, sprawl looks like growth. New homes, new shopping centers, new roads. But in reality, it's one of the most expensive, unsustainable ways to build a city. Sprawl forces people to live far away from jobs, schools, and services. That means more time stuck in traffic and even more dependence on cars. A simple commute can eat up hours of your day. Kids can't walk or bike anywhere safely, and if you don't own a car, you're basically locked out of daily life. It's also insanely costly for cities themselves. Every new subdivision needs new roads, sewers, utilities, and emergency services. Stretching that infrastructure across miles of low-density housing drains public budgets. Tax revenue from these neighborhoods rarely covers the long-term costs of maintaining them. That's why so many sprawling suburbs struggle with crumbling roads and underfunded services. It's simply not sustainable. Meanwhile, the older, denser parts of cities remain the most desirable. People want to live in neighborhoods where you can walk to a cafe, grab groceries without driving, or bike to school. Yet, instead of building more of that, cities keep approving developments that lock us deeper into sprawl. And sprawl doesn't even solve housing shortages. Sprawling subdivisions eat up land while still producing fewer homes per acre than compact mixed-use neighborhoods. This results in housing that stays expensive, traffic gets worse, and cities lose their character. And sprawl connects directly to the next mistake: ignoring public transit. When cities stretch outward and focus only on cars, transit is usually the first thing to suffer. Buses get fewer routes. Trains can't get funded. New neighborhoods are built with no stations, no stops, and sometimes not even sidewalks to reach them. Eventually, people don't use transit because it's unreliable, and cities point to the low ridership as an excuse to cut it even more. It's a cycle that kills itself. But strong public transit is what makes cities actually work. Trains, buses, and subways move more people more efficiently than highways ever can. One bus can replace dozens of cars. One train line can reshape a whole city. Without it, you end up with exactly what sprawl creates: endless traffic, expensive commutes, and people trapped in their cars. Ignoring transit also makes cities less fair. Not everyone can drive. Kids, the elderly, people with disabilities, and low-income residents all rely on transit to live their daily lives. When a city cuts or neglects these systems, it basically makes it bad for people without cars. That forces families to spend thousands more on vehicles just to survive. And here's the proof it doesn't have to be this way. Cities that invest in transit thrive. Look at New York, Tokyo, or even smaller cities like Zurich or Bogota. People still own cars, but they don't need them for every trip. That freedom is what makes cities livable. And if ignoring transit wasn't enough, cities also keep building something even worse. They're known as stroads. A stroad is a street-road hybrid. It tries to be both a fast road for cars and a local street for businesses and pedestrians. In reality, it fails at both. Cars can't move fast because there are traffic lights every block. People can't walk safely because cars are zipping by at dangerous speeds. Businesses suffer because the layout is hostile to foot traffic. Everyone loses. You've definitely seen them. 6 lanes wide, giant turning lanes, a gas station on one corner, a chain restaurant on the next, and a strip mall across the street. Sidewalks might technically exist, but they're next to speeding traffic with no shade or safe crossings. These places feel ugly, unsafe, and exhausting to navigate because they are. Stroads are also insanely expensive for cities. They cost more to build and maintain than traditional streets, yet they generate far less tax revenue. A small walkable downtown block can bring in more money per acre than miles of sprawling stroad lined with parking lots. But cities keep approving them because they look like development on paper. And the irony? Stroads don't even fix traffic. They clog up with cars because they're designed like streets, but they're dangerous for pedestrians because they're designed like highways. It's the worst of both worlds. The cities that rip out stroads and turn them back into real streets with narrower lanes, safe crossing, bike access, and storefronts, they see instant improvements. Safer roads, healthier businesses, and more people actually enjoying the space. And if stroads weren't bad enough, they also create another massive problem: heat islands. Here's how it works. When cities cover everything in dark asphalt, endless concrete, and flat black rooftops, those surfaces trap heat during the day and slowly release it at night. Instead of cooling down, cities stay hot. sometimes 10, even 15 degrees hotter than nearby areas with trees, grass, or water. That extra heat isn't just annoying, it can make life in cities downright dangerous. Think about it. Step onto one of those giant parking lots in the middle of July. It feels like walking across a frying pan. The heat radiates off the pavement, cooking you from the ground up. Add in wide stroads, massive highways, and rooftops with zero shade, and you have hot neighborhoods that feel unlivable in summer. And unlike natural heat, this is man-made. It's a direct result of how cities chose to build. The costs are everywhere. Families run their air conditioning non-stop, driving up utility bills. Power grids buckle under extreme demand. Vulnerable groups like the elderly, kids, and people without access to cooling face serious health risks, including heat stroke and even death. And here's the part most cities don't want to admit. Heat islands don't affect everyone equally. Wealthier areas usually have trees, parks, and cooler streets. Poorer neighborhoods often have more pavement, fewer trees, and almost no shade. That means they bake harder and longer. Heat islands aren't just bad design, they're an equity issue. The worst part is that we already know how to fix this. There's no mystery here. Lighter colored pavement reflects sunlight instead of absorbing it. Green roofs keep buildings cooler. Shade trees can lower street temperatures by several degrees. Narrower streets with less asphalt don't just improve walkability, they literally cool the air. Cities like Los Angeles, Phoenix, and New York are already experimenting with reflective cool pavement and large-scale tree planting, and the results are real. Streets are cooler, buildings use less energy, and people can actually spend time outside without roasting. But instead of making these fixes the default, most cities keep pouring more blacktop. They build massive stroads, widen highways, and require giant parking lots, all of which make the heat problem worse. They save a little money up front by using the cheapest materials, but residents pay the price every summer in higher bills, hotter nights, and lower quality of life. And here's the truth. Your city's probably guilty of this right now. The giant empty parking lot at your local strip mall is just heat trap. The 6-lane stroad you cross to get groceries is also heat trap. That endless black rooftop on your office building is just heat trap. Cities have basically designed ovens and then wonder why summers feel brutal. All of these mistakes in highways through downtowns, zoning bans, parking minimums, car dependence, suburban sprawl, weak transit, stroads, and heat islands aren't just bad ideas from the past. They're still shaping our lives right now. And the wild part is, cities keep repeating them as if we haven't already seen the consequences. The truth is simple. These choices make cities worse. They make housing more expensive, commutes longer, streets less safe, and summers unbearable. They destroy the very things that make people actually want to live in cities through connection, community, and quality of life. But here's the hopeful part. None of this is permanent. Cities that ditched these mistakes by tearing down downtown highways, ending parking minimums, investing in transit, planting trees, and bringing back walkable mixed-use neighborhoods have proved that change works. Streets get safer, local businesses thrive, housing gets more affordable, life gets better. So the real question isn't why these mistakes keep happening. The question is, how much longer will we accept them? Because if your city still brags about wider highways, bigger parking lots, or endless sprawl, you're not seeing progress. You're watching the same old dumb ideas on repeat.